Defending Israel with David Harris is made possible in part by Barbara and Bob Goodkind, the Paul and Lynn Light Family Foundation, To Life, to Love, the Patricia Worthen Ullman Foundation.
Hello JBS viewers, I'm David Harris and welcome back to Defending Israel. And this week's guest I think needs no introduction for most JBS viewers. Jonah Platt. Jonah Platt of Being Jewish. Jonah Platt, the Jewish and pro-Israel advocate, as well as being actor and entertainer. An important voice for all of us in the Jewish community. Jonah, good to have you here.
Great to be here, David. Love sharing time with the JBS family.
So, since you chose to name your own podcast Being Jewish, and very often are asking other people about that theme, let me ask you, sum it up. What does being Jewish mean to Jonah Platt?
Well, the key phrase there is to Jonah Platt, because what my show is all about is being Jewish is different for everybody. Right. And that's what's so important, what I love about being Jewish, is that you get to find your own way in and what you connect with.
So I'm asking
most.
about,
yes, me.
I think my fellow alumnus of the University of Pennsylvania.
Hey.
Fellow Quaker.
That's right. What being Jewish means to me is a couple things. One is family. That's what it's always meant to me. That's when I've been asked that question for the first 37 years of my life, the answer would be automatically family. All my memories around being Jewish growing up through the first 2 decades of my life are centered on my parents, my siblings, my cousins, my grandparents, spending holidays with them all across the country. I had no aunts or uncles or grandparents in the city where I lived, but somehow we were always together for different holidays. I went to summer camp, Jewish summer camp at Ramah in Ojai with a dozen cousins at a time who came from all over the country, and we all grew up together at camp. So it's really just, that warm family hug for me. But also in the last couple of years, the word that comes to mind for me is responsibility. I think that is really the key to what being Jewish means writ large. And as Jews, we're asked to be responsible at every level of life. Responsible for our thoughts, responsible for our words, responsible for our actions, for ourselves, for those dear to us, to our community, to our enemies, to strangers. We have so much responsibility, and to me, being Jewish is accepting that mantle and saying, yes, I accept that responsibility. I'm going to do my very best to uphold these ideals and take that responsibility seriously and try to make the world a better place in doing so.
Since October 7th, how has your sense of being Jewish changed, if at all?
Really, it's just the responsibility piece has really come into clear focus for me since then, really feeling that each and every one of us has a role to play today. I think many of us, not everyone surely, but many have been more passive in the last couple decades, more relaxed, more comfortable, more taking for granted our ability to be openly and comfortably Jewish in this country and in the world. I don't think we have that luxury anymore. And so I certainly feel more of a renewed and urgent sense of responsibility that I see a lot of other people feeling as well. And I continue to urge every Jew on planet Earth to embody that sense of responsibility. It really is an all hands on deck moment that we're in. And if we want to create a different reality, we all have to actively take part in that.
So, Jonah, Israel itself, Zionism, what part does that play in this sort of sense of identity, responsibility, family for you?
For me, it's a key tenet. I mean, it's like as New York's Rabbi Elliot Cosgrove said recently, it is as much a pillar, at least for me, and I think for most Jews, of my Jewishness as prayer or holidays or any of the other values. Israel is a key column of what makes a Jew a Jew. That's our homeland. There's a reason We've been praying, facing it for thousands of years, and we are a land-based tribal group with so much of our rituals and holidays and texts. It's all about this place where that is our homeland and where today half of our people live. To me, it's not really a choice. I mean, it's the same as it's family, right? It's like you don't choose your family. You can get in disagreements with your family. You can get mad at your family. Behind closed doors, you can have it out with your family, but you don't need an excuse or like a reason to show up for and support your family. Your family's your family, and that's how I feel about Israel.
So you and I are talking on the day of New York's mayoralty election. We obviously don't know the results.
Yeah.
But we're told by various polls that a fair number of younger Jews in particular may end up voting for a candidate who is no friend, much less fan of the state of Israel. They obviously don't think that Israel, Zionism is necessarily a part of their sense of self. Where do we go wrong?
That's the big question, right, David? I would say we went wrong in a couple places. I think the main one is the way that we have handled Israel education in this country. I think it's being corrected now-ish, but I think over the past couple decades, we didn't do a good job of it. I think we either gave no Israel education beyond singing Kachol Velavan and celebrating Yom HaAtzmaut and knowing like we love Israel. We didn't go deep at all. We didn't study the history. We didn't study the politics. We didn't look at warts and all the way we should any country that's important. The way we should study American history is the way that we should be teaching Israel history and sociology to day school kids and Hebrew school kids and in universities and at summer camp. We didn't do that. And so I think when things started to happen and young people started to go out into the world and fill that education for themselves, we lost some people. People who discovered these warts and felt a sense of betrayal, which I think is kind of a cop-out. I mean, it is one thing to go, wow, I wish I would have learned this. I'm annoyed by it, but now I'm going to learn the truth and make a decision, as opposed to, oh, I didn't learn this, therefore I now hate Israel. That doesn't quite jive for me, but I think that's the route a lot of people have gone. And, as the progressive community has sort of moved further and further left and made checking your Zionism at the door a part of joining that club, there have been, unfortunately, all too many young people who feel much more of a connection and much more in alignment to that progressive community than to their own accident of birth Jewish community, and they're willing to check that Zionism at the door to be part of their chosen social group.
But from your perspective, if Israel is a liberal or even a progressive cause, and certainly within the Middle East context, how do we lose the progressive definition of Israel? Why is it now seen as an arch-conservative or reactionary or right-wing when it is by far the most liberal/progressive nation in the entire Middle East? Where do we go wrong?
Yeah, I think there's two parts of that. One is, and I think it's fair to say, that certainly the government is not liberal there. It's the most
current government.
The current government of
Right.
Israel is the most far-right government they've ever had in its history. So I think just looking at that on the surface, if you are someone who is a leftist American, like deep progressive liberal, you don't see yourself in that government. So that
even if the alternative is Hamas, or even if the alternative is Mahmoud Abbas, who is now in his 20th year of a 4-year presidential term. I mean, are we looking at Israel in a vacuum, or are we looking at it in the real world with those surrounding it?
For these people, it's very much a vacuum. I mean, that's sort of how. The only way you're able to hold these points of view is if you're not really a deep digger, right? Because if you're the kind of person who digs deep and looks at things from all sides and gathers all your facts, it's impossible to take the position of Israel bad, Israel at fault for everything, they are the root cause of all evil. You can't get there if you're looking at absolutely everything from an objective point of view. So these are not people who do that. These are people who sort of accept what's been handed to them. Propaganda is a very powerful tool. That's why enemies keep using it over and over and over again. And the framework that a lot of these younger liberal folks have been raised up in, they're very specifically being taught to view Israel as an oppressive, conservative, non-liberal, exploitative, colonial, supremacist power. And so they don't even have that touch point in their minds of, oh, Israel is this, liberal bastion in this otherwise, Islamist or dictator-filled authoritarian region. They're not being shown that side, and when they are, because their beliefs are already so firmly held of what Israel is or is not, they sort of bat it away. It's very pick and choose your own facts.
Fascinating and frankly a little frightening.
No doubt.
Back for a moment to the New York election. Obviously we don't know who's going to win, but the very fact that we have a Zohran Mamdani as the leader in the polls in this city with the largest Jewish population in the world outside Israel, what does it tell you? Is this a phenomenon that will come and go, or do you think something has fundamentally, structurally changed in America?
It's a great question, and I don't think we'll fully know the answer until we see not only the election results, but who voted and sort of why they voted and what the fallout comes to be. Certainly, we've seen in one of America's most liberal bastions a willingness to shift leftward, not just in terms of the anti-Israel of it all, which is very clear to anybody who wants to see it. I mean, having somebody who's your leader in an elected position who cannot condemn Hamas as a terrorist organization is very questionable judgment to me on any level, wherever you fall in Israel or not, or any other specific. But the fact is, people on the left are moving in a socialist direction, or as much as they understand it. It's a very enticing proposition for a lot of folks who see that their rent is too high, the cost of living is too high, and here's somebody saying, I'm going to give you a free apartment and I'm going to give you free transportation. You go, well, that sounds great. He's charismatic, he's well-spoken, he wears a suit everywhere he goes, he looks polished, he's young. And my other choice is somebody in Cuomo who is establishment, who is dinged with all sorts of checkered history and allegations, who does not really have a galvanizing message other than I'm not that guy, which is a really, you would hope the Democratic Party would have learned at this point that's not a win. I mean, he's running as an independent, but that's not a winning message of just I'm not that guy is not how you win elections. So part of it also remains to be seen, is it just because of the choices folks were given, and if there was an alternate that was actually exciting and had a message people were excited to hear, would that have moved the needle in any way? So that's why I want to withhold full judgment until we see the fallout. But certainly that this is even on the table. Again, a person who, forget the Intifada stuff, forget the boot of the NYPD is laced by the IDF, all of that anti-whatever. The fact that you're going to have an elected official who just can't come out and say, yes, I think Hamas, who committed October 7th, who is murdering their own people in the streets, who is a horrible terrorist entity, that you as an elected official cannot come out and say, I think they should disarm, is, to me, completely disqualifying for anybody in any level of leadership. I would never want that person making any kind of judgment call on my behalf.
And to make matters still worse, of course, the opposition to him is divided between the Andrew Cuomo you described and Curtis Sliwa, who has refused to exit the race.
Right.
So we could very well end up with a clear majority of New Yorkers who vote against Mamdani, but because of the divided vote,
yeah,
give him the keys to City Hall.
It could. I mean, recently President Trump came out in support of Cuomo, which I would hope would help move the needle for some folks who were thinking about voting the other way, but only time will tell.
And I can tell you that my wife and I went at 6 o'clock this morning to vote with the paper ballot. It's actually quite hard to find Cuomo's name.
What do you mean?
It's a large piece of paper. Obviously, I don't have a copy here, but among the mayoral candidates, he's sort of on the second row. It takes an extra moment, and for people who are not deep thinkers, to borrow from what you said earlier, it's harder. Look, we will see. Let me ask you this, Jonah. If for a moment you were given a magic wand and with that magic wand, you could do 2 or 3 things in and for and to the American Jewish community that you think is important in the year 2025, you're king for a day.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go with the magic part because
wave that wand.
Yeah, I'm going to wave the wand, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to flip a switch in every Jew's brain that takes us from this long-held mentality of I should keep my head down, I need to be quiet about being Jewish, I need to not cause a disturbance, I need to apologize, I need to ask permission. Flip that switch to I'm proud to be Jewish, I'm openly Jewish, I am normalizing being openly Jewish and taking up space in public, in my profession, in my personal life, with self-respect and
on social media.
On social media. To me, not only is that going to pay dividends just internally for Jews and for our sense of worth and well-being and what we can accomplish and celebrate, but I also think that's the number one antidote to anti-Jew hate, is a strong, proud Jewish community saying, we're here, we're not going anywhere, this is who we are, look how great we are, we want to celebrate the things that are great, and haters are going to hate, and everybody else, come join the party whenever you want. We'd love to have you.
Okay, so now I remove the wand from you, but keep your idea. How do you operationalize it?
Yeah, that's the big question. So I think, it's sort of what I'm trying to do with my own work and sphere of influence.
Right, and you have an audience.
And I do.
But who are the Jewish leaders in America that you look up to today? Who are the people that could look beyond their own JCC or federation or synagogue or group and that have a broader reach? And that can actually, if they say something like you just said, might actually inspire people to rethink this.
Well, I think more importantly than naming individuals, it's coming back to that all hands on deck moment.
Okay.
And that's what I truly believe the only way this happens is if every person takes that personal responsibility to say, what am I going to do in my life today to live more openly Jewishly, and start showing the people around me that I'm here. When I go to the grocery store and I'm standing in line, I'm wearing my Jewish star necklace, and that tells the 10 people in the grocery line, oh, there are Jews in my neighborhood. My neighbors are Jews. They go shopping like I do. They're around. These are human beings that I'm living with.
And they don't have horns.
And they don't have horns. They don't have horns. They're not. They're just like me. They're buying the same product that I'm buying, and we're chit-chatting in the line.
Are you seeing more people today than before October 7th doing exactly what you're doing?
I am, for sure. And that definitely gives me hope and energizes me and inspires me the way so many people are receptive to this idea and switching on and getting more engaged. We still have a long way to go before we reach the tipping point where it's a wave. But there's definitely been a reigniting and a re-engagement for a lot of people.
Okay, so we flip the switch, stop with the apologetic Jew, stop with the trembling Jew, and start with the proud, not arrogant, but proud, affirmative Jew.
Exactly. I mean, who I think of a lot and who I look up to in this regard is the black community. They have been facing hate for a long time. It hasn't gone anywhere. They're still racist. There's still discrimination. But that hasn't stopped the black community from celebrating itself and taking pride in itself and taking up their space and saying, like, yes, there are things we're going to deal with. I mean, there are political action groups and lobbyists and social justice groups doing all the things that need to be done as there are in the Jewish community. We're doing that hard work. But also just as a culture, they're like, we're going to live our lives and we're going to celebrate who we are, and haters are going to hate. And I wish Jews would take a page out of that playbook.
So black and proud, Jewish and proud.
Exactly.
Give you the magic wand back. A second Jonah Platt wish that if he could, turn the switch.
Yeah. It would just be, I think, understanding who and what Jews are. I think even American Jews today, look, the 2020 Pew Research Survey, it's I think 30% of Jews are unaffiliated. Right. What I would glean from that is and even in the conservative part, there are Jews who don't know what Jews are. And what I mean by that is there are still so many people, Jews and not, who think Jews are rich white Europeans who agree on the same theological ideas and don't think about Jews, certainly this is true for the not Jewish community, who don't think of Jews as this people, this connected people who all stem from this long chain stretching back into antiquity. It's that same tribe who've just been spread all over the place, and that there's so much that unites us beyond just religious belief. I mean, the clearest example is you could be an atheist and still be a Jew.
Right.
And, it doesn't matter. A Jew is a person. You're part of this nation. And I think having that clear understanding, just it flips a lot of other levers. You can't be a white oppressor if you're not a group of white people, and if you don't all come from the same place, and if you're all different socioeconomic levels. And I mean, there's just, unfortunately, the way people see Jews is what they see on the news or what they see in movies and TV, which is, Seinfeld, Bagel and Lox Jew, or ultra-Orthodox, I can't even relate to that person Jew. That's kind of all we get. Or like, the Jonah Hill, Seth Rogen, I'm going to make fun of being Jewish and distance myself from it. You don't see a lot of actual just Jews being Jews, and so we're missing that humanization.
I want to come back to Los Angeles and Hollywood in our remaining moments, but first just want to ask you, with that magic wand in hand, you're a product of Jewish camp. Would you want to make Jewish camp available to every Jewish child in America?
Yes, absolutely. I think Jewish...
Wave that wand.
Wave the wand. I wanted a limitless bucket of financial aid for Jewish day school and Jewish summer camp.
Because that was my second question, Jewish day school.
It's a huge problem. And I continue to wonder why we haven't galvanized stronger behind that. Like birthright,
because
for example.
These are obstacles.
Big obstacle. And so birthright's an amazing example of this incredible idea of let's get every Jewish person who wants to Israel for free, every Jewish young person. And they did it. Why there should be the same dream of let's get every Jewish young person who wants it to summer camp. Let's get every Jewish young person
Jewish
who
summer
wants
camp.
it, excuse me, to Jewish summer camp, to Jewish day school.
Right.
And then, but once we get them there, also it's key that we're using this intentional education when they're there. It's not enough. Look, the fact that my 2-year-old can sing Shema and Modani and all the Israeli pop songs is amazing and the best. But I also want her eventually, as she grows up, to learn really what it means to be Jewish and what it means to be connected to Israel and the history of Israel and the demography of Israel. I mean, the example I always give is I wasn't even taught that Israel was a parliamentary democracy until I was in my 30s. And I went to Jewish day school and I went to Jewish summer camp. It never came up. It just was not part of the education. And that we are really whiffing on that. So we got to get everybody in those buildings and on those campgrounds and then give them the tools that they need to be really confident in their Jewish identity. And that confidence comes from knowledge and education, warts and all.
I think you make such an important point, and especially since October 7th, being Jewish in America is not just a choice, but some would see it as a courageous choice. In the sense that I, growing up in the 50s and 60s, and my adult children who are roughly your age, had no obstacles.
Right.
None whatsoever as Jews in America being whatever they wanted to be. I already see in my grandchildren, some of whom are the age of your daughter, the beginning of obstacles. What schools are safe to send them to, what are not, where can we speak Hebrew, where should we tone it down, where should we whisper. There are already changes. Jews who are going to be Jews going forward have to have that confidence and even courage. And you're really talking about instilling it in them.
Yes, and I've seen it in young people. I've seen, I'm so heartened by high school Jewish young leaders and college Jewish young leaders. They are unbelievable. And, typically when we talk about young people, we call them, the leaders of tomorrow. But these are people who are leading right now. They are on the front lines of this stuff, a way that a lot of adults, especially those like you and me who work in the Jewish world, we are not facing obstacles and hostility day in and day out from our peers, from our professors, from our whoever. These kids are, and they're coming in really strong, really resolved. They are coming out as leaders of now, and it gives me a lot of hope for sure.
I think you're exactly right. That's why I now understand when you said I don't want to name names when I asked you who are Jewish leaders, because the real Jewish leaders today are those people in their teens and 20s who are literally on the front lines.
Yeah.
Whether in the dormitory, on the quad, in the classroom, in the high school space, who are facing it and standing up for us. We got a couple minutes left, unfortunately. Hollywood.
Yeah.
Someone well placed in Hollywood told me, David, today the film Exodus starring Paul Newman could not be made. Hollywood went from being the most pro-Israel place. It helped transform Ronald Reagan into a lifelong friend of the Jewish people in Israel. What's happened in Hollywood?
It's sort of the
if that's correct.
Yeah,
maybe it's incorrect.
I'll say two things. One is it's basically a microcosm of everything we've been discussing already. So on the one hand, you have Jews in Hollywood, the engaged Jews, who are more switched on now than ever.
Good.
And who are determined to make Jewish and Israeli storytelling happen. And that's at every level: producers, actors, writers, studio executives, agents. Like, there's a lot of people who care deeply about this and are another kind of front lines. I mean, are really day in and day out thinking about this stuff.
And they've really been stepping up, you're saying.
And they have really been stepping up. It's definitely more behind the scenes than in front of the camera. That's just also the nature of the business a little bit. You know, you're not going to see agents and the phone calls they make or whatever. But on the other hand, as we've also discussed, just the left in general, and certainly Hollywood is the most left place you can get in this country, is moving in this direction. They don't have to be deep diggers. That's not their job. Their job is to read lines, you know, and write scripts about office place comedies. But they're well educated and they're liberal, and they operate under this false premise that they are morally superior because of that, and sort of because of the way the left typically kind of has been on the right side of certain things morally. They think that's just sort of something they can take for granted and don't need to examine every single day to check to make sure that's still true. And they're, you know, off to the races on this anti-Israel genocide, et cetera, without any real due diligence. And because it's in the water and it's, you know, all your friends are saying it, all the friends are doing it, that's where it's going.
So quick question as we wrap up, Jonah. Jonah Platt, as a very public Jew, is going to run into more complications in his career in Hollywood than years ago, or not?
I don't think so. I think...
Great.
Yeah. I mean, there's two answers to this. One is, look, if somebody all of a sudden doesn't want to work with me, I'll have no idea because I won't get a phone call from them. So, but it's not like I've been in a position where I've been met with hostility or a get out of here or something like that. And then on the other side, and this I find to be true, certainly in my experience now as a Jewish, you know, advocate and public persona, and with all of my other friends who have done the same within Hollywood, you attract all kinds of new people who are on the same thing, on the same vibe with you, and want to work with you, and want to, you know, combine forces together. So I think whatever you might lose by, you know, being your proud, authentic self, you certainly gain much, much more, both in, you know, fulfillment and self-worth and an opportunity.
And on that note, with thanks to you, Jonah.
Thank you, David. Pleasure to be here.
And JBS viewers, if you're looking for hope, look to people like Jonah Platt, who I think are setting an example for what the Jewish present and the Jewish future can look like. Thank you for watching us. This is David Harris, defending Israel, and looking forward to seeing you again next week.